Hello, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, The Judgments They Form Against You. The Judgments They Form Against You. As I've talked about in the past, those self-righteous individuals who believe themselves to be right about everything. Every now and again, if they feel like there's some benefit in humbling themselves and just simply confessing that they're wrong about something, then, oh well, okay, we're not all perfect, they say. But the judgmental type of individual who is against you, they may judge you every now and again fairly, once again, when it suits them in some way. But for the most part, they're against you because they don't like what you say. They don't like what you do. They may not like somebody who you communicate with. They judge you because they want to feel better about themselves. So these are the individuals who wait for you to talk negatively about something going on in your personal or professional life, and then they will pounce. Okay? Some of them will talk about that thing that you didn't think was a big deal. You were simply sharing some information to your face, or they'll go behind your back and they'll start talking to somebody else about it. And then now there's a group of people or an individual who's forming judgments against you. Okay? Now, some of us over the years, we thought it was okay to go back and tell relatives about our relationships, right? Because that's what mothers and daughters will do, and that's what sons and fathers will do, right? But there are those who you simply can't share information with. Okay? They've proven to you over and over again that you cannot sit down and talk about your husband, talk about your children. Matter of fact, you can't talk about too much of anything because these people are carriers of information. They'll go back to their spouses and they'll form judgments against you. Okay? The type of judgments that, once again, make them feel good about their marriage, make them feel good that they, escaped that bullet, make them feel good about their spending habits, the things that they have acquired. Because look at you, silly one. Look at you, immature one. Look at you, who they may think that you know everything. And so they will talk about you. Now, my thing is that we've got to be selective about the information that we share with anyone. And I do mean anyone, whether it's the one who's closest to you, or whether it's the one who's distant, or whether it's the person who's the coworker or the stranger on the street. Be selective about what you say. And I will tell you, the best thing above all things to do is consult with the Lord while they're talking to you about any number of things. You see, and I will tell you that you will be surprised at how cautious you are from now on about the things that you say. Okay? Because some of us, we're very open and transparent. But I can be that way with select individuals from start to finish. But other people, no, you're not getting the whole backstory. You're not getting every itty bitty thing that has ever happened. No, I'm not going to talk about certain people because of any number of reasons. And if I'm supposed to be walking with the one true God, he's going to cause me at some point just to simply be quiet. No, you don't need to tell them that. Okay? So we're praying while we are listening to people or reading what they're saying, or we're in groups that tend to be a bit hostile, tension-filled. We are not being so quick to say something. We're not being the ones that are so ready to give all sorts of advice, and the ones who are just going to be there, in every situation and respond to every single thing that someone says to us, whether online or offline. I have a limit, and I know this for a fact. Over the years, I have a limit of how long I'm going to communicate with a person across the internet. And when it gets to a point where I suspect that there's going to be some type of debate, or they're looking for a little friendship, you see, or it is something where they're asking me 20 some odd questions, I'm going to shut that off. Okay. And some people will say, well, why would you do that? Number one is you got to look at the platform, right? The platform that you have. You have to look at how much time you have to communicate with that platform. You have to look at people's motives, because sometimes their motives are very clear in what they write. You have to look at the fact that, are they completely stable? Okay, in what they're saying. Okay, sometimes people are not. Sometimes people are stalkers. Sometimes people, got personal issues and they want to dump them on you, and they want to do it in such a way where they want you to be all things to them. And maybe that's why they're having the trouble that they're having, because they're looking for a replacement, okay, a substitute. Then once they get what they get, they discard for some, and others, they want to hold on to you, okay? Hold on to you like a rabbit's foot, okay, like you're some kind of lucky charm. So we're guarded. When we are people who work for the one true God, we cannot afford to be open and transparent about every itty bitty thing that goes on, because I'm a free spirit and I just want to embrace all. Yeah, and you will burn out very quickly too. Okay? And some individuals have gone mad trying to be all things to everyone. Okay? There has to be a safeguard put up on your heart as well as your mouth. In past audio, I've done the Bible study part of your mouth and how your mouth can get you into trouble, and all sorts of issues can take place. And that's why the Lord tells us to watch as well as pray in so many different passages of scripture. He wants us to rely on him, to cast our burdens over to him. Why? So that we don't be ensnared by the demonic, because he knows the demonic is out here, who's going to form judgments against you. Okay, he's going to put his minions, the people who don't have any type of reverence for the one true God, the people who don't like people of light. Okay, he is going to put them up to being against any number of things that you say or do. But I didn't mean anything bad. But to the demonic, it's a big deal. Well, I was just trying to help. But to the demonic, they look at it as, no, you're not helping. You're just trying to control me. Well, you were just trying to do a lot of things, but you tried to do them without the one true God. I got to keep knocking up against somebody's head with God. Because every time we, once again, go in our own direction and we say what we feel we want to say, especially when we get older, sometimes we get bolder, right? And we think it's okay and all right to check somebody. The Lord will allow sometimes situations to happen so that we'll learn and say, you know what? No, I'm not going down that path with this person. You see, I'm not getting into this debate with this group of people. I'm not going to be lured by the snake in the grass who just wants to talk. Isn't that what the snake did with Eve? Some folks don't want to believe that story, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Okay? There was this serpent, according to the Bible, that started with what? A discussion. Okay? And then before long, she was caught in a trap. And she brought her husband down too. Okay? Too much information. I hear sometimes the kids talking amongst each other. TMI, too much information. Okay? Some people are very good about stopping us before we give too much information, at least in their book. But you ask me a question. Now you want to cut me off. You don't want me to say this. You don't want me to say that. Especially if it's convicting. So sometimes I will go ahead and I'll say what needs to be said because you just wanted to know. Okay? But I didn't want to know all that. Well, no, you need to get the breakdown because see, now I'm stepping on your toes. Now you want me to be quiet. Come on. And some people will do it in such a way in a comment to get you to talk about something else. I mean, I know I started this conversation talking about this issue and that one, but now I want to talk about something else. No, I'm not falling for the digression. I don't have time for digression. We're not going to get off topic. You came to me, you talked to me about a particular subject matter. I am going to stick with that subject matter. Well, let's talk. No, we're not going to talk about everything else. We're going to talk about the subject matter that you brought up. And that subject matter needs to be dealt with. And for some individuals, they're not willing to deal with that subject matter. After you've told them this is what you need to do, you see. Or they will receive it and then they want to have a little dialogue like, we're friends on the street. And I'll tell you that many of us who have a prophetic ministry, even though, yes, we are friendly, but we are teachers. Okay, there's a difference. There's a difference between a teacher and a friend. Okay, and what happens is we get these individuals who they blur the lines. Okay, there are some things that I have a limit of teaching because you can see from all the audios, lots and lots of information. Okay, there's very little time in a day and there's a whole lot of people. It's not just the one person who reaches out to me, but there's many. And I only got so much time and so much information that I can give. But how are you and the kids and what's going on and what do you think about this and blah, 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 blah. We don't have that type of time. Our days are numbered. And one day, some of you are going to look up and one of my kids is going to have an audio or video that says that my mother passed away. You see, this is how serious I take time. Okay. Now, some folks in their minds, they believe themselves to have much time, especially if they're not working, they don't have kids, they're not married, or they've already been there, done it, seen a movie. So now you got time on your hands. But some of us, we're not there yet. And that's where we got to be conscious. We got to be conscious of that sort of thing. So we've got these folks who they're either looking for a lot of information that they're going to use later against you, or you may be that individual that you're dispensing information and you're dispensing a lot of information and maybe you're not necessarily praying about it. Okay. So here they are over there in Timbuktu County somewhere, and they have received, I'm using a hypothetical example, they have received some information about you, whether you gave it to them or someone else did. So now they're making a judgment on your marriage is whatever they consider your marriage to be. Your children are whatever they want to describe your children as. They're going to go down the line of everything that you told them or somebody else did. Your financial portfolio or lack thereof is, okay, where you're located or where you chose to live. They're going to form a judgment about that. Okay. And God will reveal these people to us over time. And over the years, when I found out that these sorts of dialogues were going on and most of what they were talking about concerning me was negative, God was already at work to move me to distance myself and to stop talking to these people about my personal business. Because even when I cut down conversation and I didn't have too much to say, now they're forming judgments against you saying, oh, you forgot about us? Oh, you don't want to talk to us any longer? People can pick up. I don't know if some of you all know this, but people who are discerning, people who are gifted, people who are spiritual, they can pick up on folks talking negative, talking what about them. Okay. But I never said nothing to her face. I never, said anything insulting, but you did when you were talking to your spouse, or you did when you were talking to that group. You did. Okay. And so when they pick up on this sort of thing time and time again, God will safeguard their hearts, their minds, their spirits when they draw near to him, though. Now, when you don't draw near to the one true God, you are open target. And that's why some of you all are suffering much, because you keep going back to the toxic people, places, and things. You keep giving them information to feed them. Okay. Like a zookeeper is giving steak to a tiger. Okay. You keep feeding them and that tiger's looking for some more and some more. So you, like the zookeeper, giving them the information. They're waiting on you to come back around with some more information so that they can munch on that. Here she go again. Let me tell you, that's what she does. She gets on the phone. She starts telling me about this thing and that thing. Then I'm like, girl, you just need to get your life together. You're just too old. You're just too smart. You're just too whatever. Or it's the opposite. She's just so dumb. She's so stupid. She's so ugly. See? Either way, there's a judgment being formed. Now, we can't control people's mouths, okay? Unless, of course, you're one of those aggressive, physically abusive type of people. You might be able to do some things, but I don't recommend it. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take these burdens over to the one true God. We're also going to confront the individuals who we know tend to say things that we don't particularly appreciate. during an opportune time. Now, that opportune time, once again, is something that you take over to the one true God. When you know that you got the boldness and you're ready to just go all in, Lord, when is the opportune time for me to confront this individual? Because timing is everything. And you want them to feel something, okay? Something that is convicting that will cause them to slow their roll on causing problems for you. Okay, because sometimes those judgments are causing problems for you with other people who you admire, who you respect. Those judgments might be on the internet or what have you, and they might be the type of judgments that are out to damage your reputation. So some folks might be confronted, whether via a third party, that might be law enforcement. In one situation, I got a third party involved. And that third party had to enforce some rules, and someone ended up losing their account. See, we don't play. We don't play with these folks who decide that they want to just go all out because they are offended, or because they don't like, or because they feel like you should respond a certain way to whatever they put out. And then when you don't, they form a judgment against you, or they want to be like the parent who says, I'm not giving you anything because you didn't respond in the way that I wanted. Okay, so now what? Right? Life moves on. We don't sit there and grovel and complain and be all caught up in somebody's emotions. Okay, it takes a while to get to that place, but by God, you're going to do it. They're emotional. They're upset. They're forming their judgments. They've got their flying monkeys. You've got to fight back in the way that God wants you to fight back. So direct confrontation is one way. Another way is to simply ignore. I'm going to shut off the phone line on you. Okay? I'm going to go about my business. I'm not going to be acknowledging holidays and all this other stuff. I'm just not going to do it. Because you only get so many opportunities with the person, and then you've got to establish those boundaries, right? The next thing you may find yourself having to do, and mind you, I'm just giving you information based on what I've personally done, okay? You might find yourself having to pin some information down. Document days, times, especially when it comes to the workplace, when this person decided to tell you something, whoever that might be, that somebody else said, that you know wasn't for you but against you. And then as you're documenting this information, what you're going to do is when that same individual who claims that they're in support of you and never said one bad word about you, you're going to recall those times that information got to you about what they said, what they really said, okay? And make sure that you have your information accurate. That way, the liar, they don't have a fight, okay? The abuser, the user, the narcissist, they don't have a fight. The other thing that you could also do is you can pin your upset. You can write it down, and you can simply either take that burden over to the one true God and rip it up and never send that letter, or you can send that letter and let that person know, look, over the years, I don't feel like you supported me. I felt like you were an enemy. And then you explain why you felt like that person was an enemy to you. And of course, they're going to deny. They're going to call you up. They might even cuss you out. The next family event, they might reserve all of the dramas and traumas for that time so that everybody can see. Oh, yeah, look at this letter she wrote me, you see. And when you know, once again, you got people like that, you don't pen any letters. You don't put anything on video. You don't do too much of anything if you feel like your message is really not going to be heard and it's going to be nothing more than a spectacle for them to just laugh at, pass around, you know, things like that. If you have to cut off one, you usually have to cut off others too, because that one is the one who's going to keep up the issues. Okay, because they're offended. They're offended that you confronted them. They're offended because you even know that they said all this negative stuff about you. They're offended because maybe you were the one who did pen the letter and it wasn't well received. Or you were the one that had the video and you sent it to them. Whatever the case may be, the point is that they probably have these other people around them that they've convinced that you are the one that's against them, that you're being judgmental and you're being self-righteous and you think you're better than everybody else. That's what they do. They turn situations around. If you, on the outside looking in, you're hearing all this and this person has really disturbed you about what they said, then you can confront them and say, you know what, shut that all down because you're the guilty one. You want to blame everybody else. Now, that's a bold thing to do, especially when that's a favorite of yours or you really do value what they say. But this person is the type of person who likes to, time and time again, form these judgments. They're negative. They tend to, once again, put themselves on a pedestal. They're the self-righteous type. Everybody is wrong and they're always right. I mean, you may not have even heard all of the details coming from the folks who are their victims, but you know one thing, this person is bad news. This person has stirred up a lot of trouble. This person has done their share of dirty deeds, and this is why there's the distance. This is why the daughter doesn't call or the son doesn't come around any longer, or the relatives don't want to have anything to do with him or her, because they like to carry information or because they like to talk negatively, smile in people's faces and then turn around and talk about them behind their backs. They want to gain the support from anybody who's willing to listen, who's willing to side with them. Maybe they were once the matriarch who was very honest and kind and loving, but then something happened and now they're not a very honest person, right? They're dishonest, they're unloving, and they've got an axe to grind with just about everybody who they encounter. What happened with the new friend? Well, we had a falling out. But, you know, she was this and she was that. And anyway, her sorry, you know what, son or daughter or husband or whoever see, all that information. They form their judgments. Well, what happened to, your daughter coming around every such and such day? You know, whatever those days might have been, right? I'm just using examples. Well, what had happened was that she could have been a controlling mother while she was talking about her no good daughter. You know, the daughter may have taken on all sorts of mannerisms similar to the mother. And so, you know, the person on the outside looking in sees both of them and it says, well, no wonder you two don't get along because you both act alike. She only act like that because she saw you. Oh, now, wait a minute. Yeah, she saw you. She picked up on some of your ways. And then you got some of the sons and fathers who have their share of issues because the father just doesn't want to have too much to say to the son, but he got a whole lot to say to the mother and to everybody else in the family. Now, what sense does that make? So much for a close relationship there, you see. And then usually it's judgments. He doesn't spend his money right. He wants to go out and party. He just wants to, just what does he want to do with his life? Okay. And so the negative countenance is there. The son says, you know what? Forget this. I don't need him. He goes, he finds a surrogate father. Okay. Or some type of man he can look up to. Now he's a better man than his father. And all that negative father can do is sit back and just keep running his mouth about his so-called no good son or no good sons. And meanwhile, that's not the case at all. You see, but they are right? The one who forms the judgment thinks that he or she is always right, even when they're so wrong. And so these people, I hate to say it, they end up in their graves with their judgments. They rather formulate these judgments that are inaccurate, that are insulting, that are disrespectful, even their own judgments about the Lord. They rather go to their graves with all of that than to simply fall on knees and say, Lord, please forgive me. I am so wrong. I see myself in this message. I have no business acting this way. I need to come up out of this thing. Lord Jesus, help me. And they are supposed to not only go to the Lord, but go to the counselors. Read the books about how to better communicate with people. Learn how to be that one that's not out there telling every single thing that is on your heart and on your mind concerning that group or this, whatever association. Okay. Sitting up there on that soapbox or standing up on the soapbox and sitting up there on the high horse. We have these individuals. They come through our channels. That's why I can talk about them right off the top of my head. Okay? Very, very troubling individuals because they just refuse to change. And so once again, we got some names, right? As you were listening to this message, take those names over to the one true God. Don't blast their names on this channel. Don't do that, because when you do that, you show that you're petty and you're silly in what you do. And of course, God don't want us doing that sort of thing. Okay. And what you also want to do too is, this was something that my grandmother told me years ago, put their names in the Bible, right? Don't write in the Bible their names, but take a piece of paper and list these people's names who have formulated judgments against you that were inaccurate. They didn't bother to follow up with you, didn't bother to sit down and talk with you, didn't bother to even get to know you. You may have once been, a certain way, but that's not who you are now. And so we give them over to the one true God in Jesus' mighty name. We don't have much time on this planet, and we don't want to lose any sleep over these people. We don't want to be given to these people. These people, God did not lay on our hearts to give, okay? Now, I've got to say that, and I can say it with confidence. These people who formulate these disrespectful, evil, just mean-spirited things about who we are, you're not to give your money, your time, nothing. Once they have gave you some type of indicator that you are whatever they said about you, your family is, the decisions that you made are, what you said. Once they've done all of that, you cut communication off. There's too many other people out here who could benefit from whatever service you might have, okay? And there's ways to block these individuals on your various social networking sites. Look into it. And of course, if you are living with these people, you make every effort to get out by taking on different jobs. I told one individual, I said, you don't need just one job, you need two. Well, he started with his excuses. At that point, that's it. I'm done with it. You want out the situation or not, you've got to put your money up. And if you don't have the mindset to be able to make money in a traditional way, like an 8 to 10 hour job, then that's when you go and talk with those who can be able to get your money. Because sometimes people have mental health issues, and sometimes they have disabilities or what have you, and they have to rely on people to a certain degree. But then you can talk to them about feeling abused and feeling used living in your current situation. And they might be able to find independent housing for you. We're not going to listen to the excuses, not on this channel. A lot of these people have come up out of their situations, and they're willing to pray. They're willing to give you some advice. And some of you others, it's just a matter of sticking some information in the Google search engine about what your situation is and seeing what comes back in your local area. But what we're not encouraging, once again, on this channel is people are supposed to just sit there like lumps on a log off in a corner somewhere crying their eyes out day in and day out because somebody is forming or some group is forming a judgment about you. And I would also go so far as to say, watch what not only you say, but what your brand might be, your appearance, what you are communicating to the masses or to people just within your own house or at your workplace. And that will also quell some of that judgment, you see, because I don't look like what you thought, or I don't talk in the way that you thought, or I changed my appearance personally because I didn't want people to think certain things. I remember one son, he said that if you're going to dress a certain way, don't dress like a boy because there's people out there that's going to think something. Let your hair start to grow. Don't be letting your hair, stay short because once again, people formulate certain judgments. And then I had to go through a long list with my sons about toxic stuff, toxic body hygiene, toxic appearances, toxic conversation, how people formulate all sorts of judgments. Show your best self in Jesus' name. Check yourself, right? Take a look at what you're saying, what you're doing, and don't always assume that, everything I'm doing is okay and all right, because God will convict you on that. I'm a witness. He'll tell you, no, you are not okay and all right with wearing your hair that way, or wearing these clothes this way, or having those sorts of words come out your mouth, or getting away with, showering only this day as opposed to, these days. I mean, we got people who they even believe they're self-righteous or when it comes to their body hygiene. And it's like, really? You tell them that something smells, they turn their face all up and say, no, that's you. No, it's you. It's you. And you need to do something about it. So, but we don't, once again, we're not going to tell them every little itty bitty thing, because there are times where God is not going to allow us to do that. We have to wait for the opportune time, you see. So, once again, guard your conversations, guard your heart, and may the Lord be with you. Somebody's going to be delivered from some toxic folks. So today, after this message, hallelujah, because I'm validating you. Yes, there are those who are against you because you are now a child of God. And consider that a compliment. Hey, they were against Jesus. And one thing about it, God ended up taking what the demonic meant for evil and turning it around into something good. So hold on to the good and expect the blessings through every situation that you're going through. In Jesus' mighty name. Well, that is it. Please do check the description box for anything that might be of interest. You've been listening to YouTube NM Enterprise 7. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment.